Beneath the heavy shroud of a restless night, the wind howled through ancient trees, and the rain lashed against the lonely walls of Everthorn Manor. Deep within its crumbling halls, secrets festered, a silent witness to the pain, deceit, and despair that had taken root within its shadows. But what if I told you that this was not the story of a haunted house, but of a betrayal so profound it would unravel the lives of everyone tied to it? Tonight we delve into a tale of sacrifice and vengeance, where trust is shattered and love turns to ash. At the heart of it all is Detective Eleanor Graves, a woman defined by her precision, her intellect, and her guarded heart. Drawn into this chilling case not by coincidence, but by a fragile thread of loyalty to an old friend. As tangled lies are exposed and chilling truths emerge, the line between victim and villain will blur. Stay with us as we explore the heartbreak, the mystery, and the unbelievable betrayal that changed everything. Now turning to the setting, we find ourselves at the imposing Everthorn Manor, perched perilously on the rugged cliffs of Cornwall. This sprawling estate, with its towering spires and shadowy halls, carries an air of solemn grandeur, though time has not been kind to it. The Gothic architecture, once a marvel of intricate stonework and stained glass windows, now bears the scars of neglect. Crumbling facades seem to bow under the weight of their own history, while ivy weaves through cracks like nature's quiet reclamation. The wind howls relentlessly across the cliffs, its mournful cry echoing through the hollow corridors, and the ever-present mist clings to the grounds like a ghost that refuses to leave. The isolation of Everthorn Manor is palpable, its distance from prying eyes shrouding it in a suffocating silence. Each room tells its own story, locked doors that hint at forbidden secrets, portraits of long-dead ancestors whose eyes seem to follow you as you pass, and furniture shrouded in sheets like forgotten memories. At night, the manor breathes a life of its own. Faint creaks and whispers, unexplained by logic, become a symphony of unease, and the glow of a single flickering candle feels like a fragile defense against the encroaching darkness. The walls of Everthorn seem to listen, as though they have borne witness to countless acts of pain and treachery. Here, the overwhelming sense of betrayal runs deep, as if the very foundation of the house is soaked in sorrow. It is within this haunting atmosphere that the story unfolds, a place where the boundaries between loyalty and deception blur, and where trust is as fleeting as the thin veil of fog on the cliffs. Moving forward, we meet Detective Eleanor Graves, a woman whose reputation precedes her like the soft rustle of pages in an old, storied book. Eleanor is no stranger to the unrelenting shadows that accompany the truth. Her career, a mosaic of victories against the improbable, has made her a beacon of hope in the murky world of unsolved mysteries. Sharp-witted and fiercely independent, she has an uncanny ability to see through facades, unraveling lies with precision that leaves even the most cunning deceivers exposed. But Eleanor's relentless pursuit of justice is not driven solely by a sense of duty. It is deeply personal, rooted in a tragedy that still casts its shadow over her life. Years ago, she placed her trust in someone she loved, only to find herself betrayed in a way that left scars far more profound than anything visible. This betrayal has shaped her, hardening her resolve to seek the truth no matter the cost, while also making her cautious, even distant, in her dealings with others. Logic is her anchor in a turbulent world, and she clings to it fiercely, rarely allowing emotion to cloud her judgment. Her guarded demeanor may make her seem impenetrable, but her piercing eyes are windows to a soul tirelessly searching for redemption, for herself and for those who cannot find justice on their own. It is this reputation that leads Eleanor to Everthorn Manor. A letter arrives one crisp autumn morning, delivered not by the usual post, but by hand, its envelope sealed with an unfamiliar crest. The contents are brief but compelling. An old acquaintance, a constabulary officer who once worked with Eleanor on another baffling case, writes of a disappearance that has left the local authorities mystified. Orpheus Crowley, the enigmatic master of Everthorn, has vanished without a trace under circumstances that defy logic. The secluded location of the manor complicates matters further, casting doubt on how anyone could simply disappear from such an isolated place. The plea for Eleanor's expertise is unmistakable, the letter ending with the simple phrase, "You are the only one who can see what others overlook," with an old friend vouching for the seriousness of the matter and her insatiable curiosity ignited by the mystery of Orpheus Crowley. Eleanor agrees to take on the case. Little does she know, Everthorn Manor will test her in ways she has never been tested before. Beneath its decaying grandeur lie secrets so dark and betrayals so profound that even Eleanor's formidable intuition may not be enough to untangle the truth. As the next challenge unfolds, the tale begins with a night shrouded in opulence and unease. The grand halls of Everthorn Manor echoed with laughter and clinking glasses as Orpheus Crowley hosted a lavish dinner party, inviting a select group of guests to share in his wealth and enigmatic charm. The glow of ornate chandeliers bathed the dining room in a warm, golden light, but beneath the surface of cordial conversation lay currents of tension, unspoken truths, and carefully concealed rivalries. Orpheus, ever the enigmatic figure, was in fine form that evening, weaving tales that held his guests captive, his charisma as potent as the wine freely flowing through the night. Yet, as the clock neared midnight, the atmosphere shifted subtly, like the first whisper of a storm approaching. Orpheus excused himself, retreating to his study with a deliberate stride, his presence leaving a void in the room that no amount of revelry could fill. The study, a sanctuary of leather-bound volumes and an imposing oak desk, became the last place Orpheus Crowley was ever seen. Moments after his departure, the faint sound of shattering glass pierced the calm, followed by an unsettling silence that gripped the manor's occupants. Some guests exchanged uneasy glances, but the festivities carried on, each too polite or perhaps too afraid to question the strange occurrence on a night meant for indulgence. By dawn, worry had taken root. The housekeeper discovered the study door locked from the inside, an impenetrable barrier separating the curious from the cryptic scene within. When the door was finally forced open, the room revealed no trace of Orpheus Crowley. Instead, it held a chilling tableau. A faint scent of blood lingered in the air. The shattered remnants of a glass tumbler glinted on the carpet, and a single note lay ominously on the desk. Written in Orpheus's measured handwriting were words that seemed to echo from the depths of his soul. Not all betrayals are forgiven. It was as if the walls themselves whispered the weight of those words, absorbing the shock that rippled through the household. How could a man vanish so completely from a locked room? What betrayal had provoked such haunting, final sentiments? These questions hung heavy in the air, their answers cloaked in the shadows of Everthorn Manor. What had begun as a night of grandeur was now cloaked in mystery, and the silence of the morning was broken only by murmurs of fear and suspicion, each guest wondering if they were somehow woven into the web of this chilling enigma. With the first light of day casting long shadows across the cliffs, the stage was set for Detective Eleanor Graves to enter a puzzle so intricate and haunting that even her steely resolve would be tested in ways she could not yet fathom. Moving forward, the investigation led to the unsettling realization that nearly everyone in Orpheus Crowley's inner circle had a reason to wish him harm. Edward Hastings, his longtime business partner, was the first to come under scrutiny. Known for his sharp intellect and even sharper tongue, Edward had built a reputation as a man who valued profit above all else. Recent whispers suggested that Edward's financial ventures were crumbling, leaving him teetering on the edge of ruin. Had Orpheus, with his considerable wealth, refused to bail him out? The cold, calculating glint in Edward's eye did little to dispel the notion that money, or the lack of it, could drive him to desperate measures. Then there was Isabel Knight, a reclusive yet captivating artist whose paintings seemed to hold secrets within their layers. Orpheus had commissioned Isabel to create his portrait some months prior, a task that reportedly brought them into close and frequent contact. What began as a professional relationship appeared to take on a more personal, perhaps even romantic, undertone. But Isabel's guarded demeanor spoke volumes about unspoken grievances. Could an affair tangled in betrayal have been the spark that ignited a darker intention? Or was her sorrowful gaze simply that of someone caught in an unfortunate web of association? Harold Murray, Orpheus's cousin, carried the weight of decades-long resentment. The inheritance of Everthorn Manor, bestowed upon Orpheus rather than Harold, had driven a wedge between the two. While Harold had always appeared genial in public, his sharp remarks during family gatherings hinted at jealousy simmering just beneath the surface. His alibi was shaky at best, and his clipped responses to Detective Graves suggested a man burdened by bitterness. Did that bitterness finally boil over, leading him to commit an unspeakable act? Margaret Dawes, the ever-dutiful housekeeper, seemed at first glance to be above suspicion. She had served the Crowley family for years with unwavering loyalty, her presence as much a part of Everthorn Manor as its creaking floors and drafty halls. Yet beneath the surface of her polite smiles lay secrets she worked tirelessly to keep hidden. Recent discoveries of forged letters in Orpheus's name raised more questions than answers, casting a shadow over her once trusted role. Could Margaret's secrets have driven her to betray the man she had served for so long? Each of these individuals had a connection to Orpheus that carried both intimacy and potential animosity. Each harbored motives, concealed emotions, or past grievances that painted them as plausible suspects. Yet the truth, twisted, layered, and deeply buried, remained elusive. As Eleanor Graves began to untangle the threads of these complex relationships, she realized she had only just dipped her toes into the turbulent waters of this case. Moving forward, Detective Eleanor Graves faced an intricate tapestry of clues that seemed to defy logic, each one adding depth to the enigma surrounding Orpheus Crowley's disappearance. The grounds of Everthorn Manor yielded the first perplexing piece, a broken pocket watch, its glass shattered, and its hands frozen at precisely 11 past 11. Though the time meant little initially, the watch's proximity to a seldom-used garden path struck Eleanor as peculiar. Was it dropped in haste or placed deliberately to mislead? Inside the manor, the fireplace in Orpheus's study revealed another layer of intrigue. Among the ashes lay faint traces of something that should not have been there. Fragments of paper, partially burned, with only a few enigmatic words legible: betrayal and forgiven. The choice of words mirrored Orpheus's cryptic note, deepening the mystery. Had he written more that someone sought to erase, or was this another carefully constructed distraction? The study itself held more secrets than answers. A locked chest sat unobtrusively in the corner, its brass hinges tarnished with age, but its lock untouched by time. When Eleanor finally pried it open, she discovered a photograph inside. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, a grainy black and white portrait of a younger Orpheus, arm in arm with a smiling woman whose identity was unknown. But closer inspection revealed something chilling. The woman's image appeared to have been violently scratched out, her face obscured by chaotic marks. What story did this forgotten photograph tell, and why had someone gone to great lengths to deface it? Outside the study, the mystery intensified. A trail of footprints, barely visible in the damp earth, led from the rear entrance of the manor toward the cliffs that overlooked the roaring sea. Yet curiously, there were no corresponding tracks leading back. Had someone approached the edge and vanished, or had the trail been intentionally staged to divert attention elsewhere? The most puzzling discovery came in the form of a diary, tucked away in the carefully arranged bookshelves of Orpheus's private library. Its cover was unremarkable, but inside, several pages had been meticulously removed. The remaining entries hinted at strained relationships, cryptically referencing broken trust and a debt no gold can repay. Whose debt was he referring to, and why had someone gone to such lengths to ensure parts of the diary were never read? As Eleanor sifted through these clues, she quickly realized that each piece added complexity rather than clarity. While the pocket watch hinted at a specific moment in time, the ash and torn pages spoke of secrets someone had worked desperately to destroy. The photograph and footprints suggested movements and connections that were yet to be fully understood. Each discovery seemed to point to a potential suspect, yet none provided the definitive answer Eleanor sought. It was as though the case itself was toying with her, presenting layers of truth wrapped within lies. Yet, Detective Graves was not one to be easily misled. With her keen eye for detail and her ability to remain unfazed by misdirection, she began tracing the threads of these clues back to their origins. She noted inconsistencies, scrutinized motives, and questioned the suspects with relentless precision. Each new finding was like a puzzle piece that refused to fit, forcing her to think beyond the obvious. But Eleanor knew one thing for certain: the closer she got to piecing it all together, the more dangerous the truth would prove to be. As the next challenge unfolds, Detective Eleanor Graves turned her focus toward the tangled lives of the suspects, each revelation shedding light on the shadowy relationships that surrounded Orpheus Crowley in his final days. Edward Hastings, once a trusted business partner, could no longer hide the cracks in his empire. Whispered rumors of embezzlement and failing ventures painted a picture of desperation. More importantly, Edward had everything to lose if Orpheus chose to sever their partnership, a possibility hinted at in one of the remaining diary entries, which referred cryptically to false alliances and broken oaths. But was Edward's financial ruin enough to provoke betrayal, or was this an elaborate facade to direct suspicion his way? Isabel Knight, the enigmatic artist, proved just as compelling. Commissioned to paint Orpheus's portrait, she had spent countless hours in his presence, Their relationship, however, seemed to extend far beyond the canvas. Eleanor unearthed letters exchanged between the two, some overflowing with admiration, others alluding to heated arguments, while Isabel insisted her connection to Orpheus was purely professional. One letter suggested otherwise, reading, "I cannot live in shadows any longer." Was Isabel confessing a deeper bond with Orpheus, or was hers the voice of someone feeling trapped by unspoken truths? Then there was Harold Murray, the estranged cousin who had long felt cheated out of the Crowley fortune. Bitter and outspoken, Harold did not shy away from voicing his grievances. Witnesses recalled heated confrontations between Harold and Orpheus over the years, including one particularly volatile argument during the night of the dinner party. Yet for all his bluster, Harold's alibi appeared unshakable. He claimed to have retired early in a drunken stupor. Still, Eleanor could not ignore the venom in his words whenever he spoke of Orpheus. Was his resentment merely a familial grudge, or did it conceal something far more sinister? Margaret Dawes, the loyal yet secretive housekeeper, presented a different kind of puzzle. She had served the Crowley family for decades, her quiet demeanor betraying little of what she might know. However, when Eleanor examined her handwriting against the letters found in the study, discrepancies began to surface. It appeared that Margaret had been forging correspondence in Orpheus's name, though for what purpose remained unclear. When pressed, Margaret insisted her actions were meant to protect the household's reputation. Yet her evasiveness only deepened Eleanor's suspicions. Was Margaret truly a guardian of the Crowley legacy, or had her loyalty warped into something far darker? As each suspect's secrets came to light, so too did a series of tantalizing misdirections. A discarded pair of leather gloves was found near the cliffs, bearing traces of seawater, yet none of the suspects claimed them. A torn scrap of fabric caught in the study's window latch matched none of their clothing. And then there were the mysterious letters signed with only an enigmatic D, which referenced debts and betrayal, but lacked any context to identify the sender. These fragments seemed to pull the investigation in countless directions, leaving Eleanor to weigh possibilities carefully. The tension grew with each new discovery, and Eleanor's resolve was tested as the stakes reached unbearable heights. The suspects' tangled motives created a labyrinth of half-truths and lies, and Eleanor knew that every wrong turn risked losing sight of the ultimate truth. Yet, as fractured as the pieces seemed, Eleanor's unyielding determination drove her to press forward. This case was as much about peeling back the layers of hidden identities as it was about discovering what had truly happened to Orpheus Crowley. And with every step, Eleanor inched closer to confronting the one truth she feared most, that the betrayal at the heart of this mystery might destroy not only those who dwelled in the shadows of Everthorn Manor, but also herself. Moving forward, the curtains lifted on an unforeseen connection as Eleanor encountered Eloise Crowley, Orpheus's young and spirited niece. Eloise had been absent from Everthorn Manor during the fateful night of the disappearance, her alibi placing her miles away in London. Yet her return to the manor seemed more than coincidental. This was someone who carried pieces of the family's troubled legacy within her. At first, Eleanor greeted Eloise's sudden involvement with guarded skepticism. What could this seemingly uninvolved niece possibly know about the tangled web of betrayal that now threatened to consume Everthorn Manor? As their conversations unfolded, Eloise revealed fragments of buried truths. She spoke of growing up surrounded by whispers of disputes and vendettas, bringing to light old grudges that had simmered beneath the surface of the Crowley family's polished exterior. While her memories lacked clarity, one detail stood out, a vivid recollection of Orpheus arguing heatedly with an unknown figure during her childhood. The memory was incomplete, shrouded in a haze of time, but Eloise's certainty about the encounter planted a seed in Eleanor's mind. Though initially reluctant to trust Eloise's insights, Eleanor soon recognized the value of her perspective. Eloise had a unique vantage point, one untethered from the night of the disappearance, yet still steeped in the intricate dynamics of the Crowley family. Their collaboration began hesitantly, like a hesitant waltz where neither party fully trusted the other's rhythm. Eleanor's analytical mind clashed with Eloise's more intuitive approach, yet together they brought complementary strengths to their search for the truth. It was Eloise who pointed out a long overlooked piece of evidence, a box of faded photographs hidden within a forgotten corner of the study. Among the images were candid snapshots of Orpheus, with people Eleanor had never seen mentioned before. One photograph caught her attention in particular, a younger Orpheus standing arm in arm with a man sporting a cryptic tattoo on his wrist. Eloise hesitated as she studied the picture, her voice trembling as she identified the man as someone her uncle once called the Shadow. The name struck Eleanor as oddly fitting, given how much of this case revolved around obscured truths and elusive figures. Eloise also brought to light a letter she had received from Orpheus shortly before his disappearance, one she had initially dismissed as rambling. The letter detailed his concerns about a storm brewing, cryptically mentioning debts owed and a betrayal that cuts from within. While Eloise admitted she had no idea what the words meant at the time, her decision to share the letter was a turning point in the investigation. Its contents hinted at a deep sense of foreboding, a premonition of the treachery that would soon unfold. As Eleanor and Eloise pieced these fragments together, a new picture began to emerge, one that challenged the assumptions Eleanor had held about the suspects and their motives. Eloise's fragmented memories and Orpheus's cryptic warnings deepened the mystery, but they also brought Eleanor closer to confronting the secrets that had remained buried within Everthorn Manor. With each passing day, Eleanor found herself relying more on Eloise's insights, their partnership evolving from cautious cooperation into a bond forged by the shared pursuit of truth. And yet, as the pieces of the puzzle began to shift into place, Eleanor couldn't shake the growing unease that their discoveries raised more questions than answers. Eloise's involvement illuminated some of the shadows that cloaked Orpheus's final days, but it also cast stark new ones. Who was the man with the tattoo? What betrayal had Orpheus foreseen, and how far would its consequences reach? More critically, did Eloise know more than she claimed, or was she truly just a willing yet inexperienced ally, searching for closure in the wake of her uncle's fate? These questions weighed heavily on Eleanor as she prepared to delve deeper into the tangled web of lies and vengeance that surrounded Orpheus Crowley's disappearance. Their fragile partnership, while promising, teetered on the edge of trust and uncertainty, and just as answers seemed within their grasp, an overlooked clue would soon uncover a betrayal so devastating it threatened to unravel everything Eleanor thought she understood, not just about the case, but about those she had come to rely on. As the sun rises on the next chapter, Eleanor found herself standing at the crossroads of revelation and despair. Piece by piece, the mosaic of Orpheus Crowley's life began to take shape, and at its center was an act of betrayal so profound it echoed through every clue she had uncovered. It was Eloise's unearthed photograph that first cracked the facade. The enigmatic man Orpheus had referred to as the Shadow. Through meticulous research, Eleanor traced this figure back to Edward Hastings, Orpheus's business partner. The cryptic tattoo was no mere decoration. It was the symbol of a clandestine pact, a secret agreement between Orpheus and Edward that had gone awry. Documents hidden in the depths of the dusty study revealed the truth. Orpheus had orchestrated a deceitful scheme to cut Edward out of a lucrative deal, a betrayal that left Edward not just financially ruined, but consumed by a thirst for revenge. Yet Edward wasn't the sole bearer of grievance. Margaret Dawes, the loyal housekeeper, had been drawn into Orpheus's cruel manipulations as well. Letters buried in the attic unveiled a chilling narrative. Margaret had suffered years of coercion, her loyalty exploited in exchange for the safety of a dark secret she couldn't afford to let surface. Orpheus's betrayal here wasn't one of finance, but of trust, a violation of the very bond that had tied Margaret to the manor for decades. Eleanor couldn't ignore the deep scars this betrayal had left, nor the desperate tone in Margaret's correspondence to an unnamed confidant. With each revelation, a haunting theme emerged. Orpheus was not the victim many had presumed him to be. His brilliance had often been a weapon, wielded against those closest to him, carving pathways of grief and desperation. The betrayal that festered within Edward and Margaret's hearts was no longer a mystery. Their motives were painfully clear. Yet, even as Eleanor grappled with these truths, a nagging question lingered. Could one betrayal alone account for the meticulous and calculated disappearance of Orpheus Crowley? Or was there yet another shadow lurking in the wings? The weight of the discovery pressed heavily upon Eleanor as she tied the threads together, each revelation weaving a tapestry of anguish, retribution, and shattered trust. The night of the disappearance no longer seemed like a single act of vengeance, but rather a culmination of years of festering wounds inflicted by a man whose betrayals knew no bounds. And as Eleanor stood on the precipice of clarity, she realized that the most devastating betrayal had yet to reveal itself, waiting like an ambush in the shadows to challenge everything she thought she understood about the case and about the people entwined within it. With the next phase of the journey in sight, Eleanor Graves summoned the key players to the grand hall of Everthorn Manor. The room, bathed in the dim glow of flickering candelabras, seemed to hold its breath as the detective began her methodical unraveling of the tangled web of truths and deceptions. The aged wood of the long dining table groaned under the weight of the evidence she had meticulously gathered, and the eyes of the suspects darted nervously, each one silently calculating what Eleanor might reveal next. Eleanor started with Edward Hastings, her voice calm yet cutting as she outlined his clandestine pact with Orpheus Crowley. The room felt colder as she revealed the treacherous financial dealings, the tattoo that symbolized their alliance, and the damning documents that traced Edward's fall from grace back to Orpheus's betrayal. Edward's face hardened, his lips pressed into a thin line, but he did not interrupt. His silence, however, spoke volumes, a quiet acknowledgement of the accusations laid bare. Next came Margaret Dawes, the housekeeper, who shrank into the shadows as Eleanor recounted the years-long manipulation she had suffered under Orpheus's thumb. The letters hidden in the attic were presented like artifacts from a tragic past, each one a testament to Margaret's coerced loyalty and the suffocating fear that had tethered her to Everthorn Manor. Eleanor's gaze softened momentarily as she spoke of Margaret's pain, but the gravity of the revelations left the room in stunned silence. Eleanor then turned to Harold Murray, Orpheus's estranged cousin, and Isabel Knight, the enigmatic artist. The anger that Harold had carried for years, stemming from familial jealousy and an inheritance he believed was unjustly stolen, was laid bare for all to hear. Isabel's secret, a passionate affair with Orpheus that had dissolved into betrayal and heartbreak, was equally shocking. Yet, as damning as their motives were, Eleanor lingered only briefly on them, her tone suggesting that the true architect of the disappearance lay elsewhere. As the tension in the room reached a fever pitch, Eleanor's eyes finally landed on Orpheus Crowley. A sharp intake of breath seemed to ripple through the hall as Eleanor, with measured precision, began to lay out the case against her. What had first appeared as harmless curiosity, a niece seeking justice for her vanished uncle, was now revealed as a carefully constructed facade. Orpheus had played her role masterfully, feeding Eleanor just enough fragmented truths to steer her investigation while keeping her own hands clean. The photograph Orpheus had claimed to stumble upon, it was no accident. It had been strategically planted to implicate Edward, to tip the scales of suspicion away from herself. The room became suffocating as Eleanor detailed Orpheus's motives. Years of silent resentment had festered into a calculated desire for vengeance. Orpheus, she revealed, had once been Orpheus's guardian and benefactor, but had also been the architect of a betrayal that had left her family in ruins. Promises of support had been broken, inheritance squandered, and Orpheus's future sacrificed on the altar of Orpheus's greed. She had grown up in the shadow of his manipulations, watching as he inflicted pain on others, powerless to stop him. Until now, Eleanor's voice sharpened as she pieced together the final moments of the night Orpheus disappeared. Orpheus had orchestrated the crime with chilling precision, exploiting the animosities of the other suspects to muddy the waters. The broken pocket watch, the ash in the fireplace, the footprints leading to the cliffs, they were not random clues, but deliberate misdirections crafted by Orpheus to fracture the investigation. Her alibi had been deftly constructed, yet it was unraveling now under the weight of Eleanor's deductions. As Eleanor unmasked the mastermind, Orpheus's composed demeanor began to crack. A steely glint in her eyes betrayed the storm brewing within her. Then, in an instant, the tension in the room exploded. Orpheus lunged toward the door in a desperate bid for escape, her movements swift and frantic. But Eleanor was ready. With the instincts of a seasoned detective, she intercepted Orpheus before she could reach the exit, her grip firm and unyielding. The other suspects watched in stunned disbelief as the woman they had trusted was subdued, her cries of indignation echoing through the grand hall. The room fell silent once more, save for the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, a haunting reminder of time running out for those who lived by deception. Eleanor, breathing heavily but resolute, stood at the center of the storm she had unraveled, the shadows of Everthorn Manor seeming to recede as the truth finally came to light. Yet as the echoes of Orpheus's betrayal lingered in the air, Eleanor could not shake the feeling that even in this moment of clarity, the darkness of Everthorn Manor had not fully given up its secrets. With the storm of revelations now settled, the aftermath of the case began to unravel, leaving an emotional wreckage that no one in the grand hall of Everthorn Manor could escape. Orpheus Crowley, once the picture of composed determination, sat in a corner, her shoulders slumped as tears streaked her face. In a trembling voice, she began to confess, not in defiance, but in resignation, as though unburdening herself from years of torment. She spoke of the Crowley family's dark history, of promises made and broken, of love twisted into leverage, and of dreams shattered under Orpheus's relentless greed. Through sobs, Eloise revealed the haunting truth. Orpheus had not only betrayed his business partners, family, and friends, but he had also condemned her parents to financial ruin, forcing Eloise to witness her family's slow unraveling while he prospered without remorse. The room hung heavy with her words, each one a chilling reminder of how deeply betrayal cuts, how it festers and corrodes the soul. Even those who had once despised Orpheus now seemed uneasy, their anger tempered by the rawness of Eloise's pain. Margaret Dawes, the housekeeper, clutched a worn handkerchief in her trembling hands, while Edward Hastings stared at the floor, as though the weight of his own misdeeds had finally caught up to him. The arrogance that had once defined the suspects was gone, replaced by a silent acknowledgement of the roles each had played in the toxic legacy of Everthorn Manor. For Eleanor Graves, the resolution of the case was anything but triumphant, as she delivered Eloise into the custody of the local constabulary. She could not shake the hollowness that had settled deep within her. Justice in its stark and unyielding form had been served, and yet it felt insufficient, a clinical end to a profoundly human tragedy. Walking back through the dimly lit corridors of Everthorn Manor, now eerily still, Eleanor found herself grappling with the moral complexities of what justice truly meant. Eloise's actions were abhorrent, yet they were born out of desperation, a final act of defiance against a lifetime of exploitation. How does one measure guilt when betrayal begets more betrayal, when victims and perpetrators blur into one? As Eleanor paused by one of the grand hall's towering windows, the first light of dawn pierced through the darkness, casting long shadows across the floor. The manor seemed to exhale, as though it too had borne the weight of the night's revelations, and yet the detective could not ignore the lingering sense of unease. How many more secrets had these walls absorbed over the decades? How many betrayals had gone unnoticed, unpunished, or worse, accepted as the cost of survival? The resolution of the case left scars on everyone involved, visible or not. Betrayal had bound them together, each thread woven into a tapestry of shared pain. For Eleanor, the case would serve as a haunting reminder of the fragility of trust, how easily it can be shattered, and how difficult it is to rebuild. As she stepped out into the crisp morning air, leaving Everthorn Manor behind, a bittersweet thought crossed her mind. Perhaps the darkness that had haunted the estate would finally dissipate, but its scars, much like its secrets, would never truly fade. As the sun rises on the next chapter, we bring this tale of betrayal and heartbreak to a poignant close. Eleanor Graves, once steadfast in her pursuit of justice, leaves Everthorn Manor not with triumph, but with the weight of questions that may never find answers. Her journey through the shadows of Everthorn has changed her profoundly, peeling back the layers of her own guarded demeanor and forcing her to confront the harrowing fragility of trust. In the end, justice was delivered, but it came at a cost, a reminder that truth, when unearthed, often carries scars of its own. Betrayal, as Eleanor witnessed, does not end with its perpetrator. It ripples outward, leaving no one untouched. It is a wound that never truly heals, its presence lingering in glances, in whispers, in the echoes of lives irreparably altered. The story of Everthorn Manor, however, refuses to be silenced. As Eleanor departed that morning, the estate stood as it always had, weathered and enduring, its gothic spires piercing the sky like sentinels of a tortured past. But now it was empty, abandoned, its halls silent save for the murmurs of the wind threading through its crumbling walls. It remains a fortress of secrets, its mysteries woven into the very stones of its foundation, never to fully fade. A place marked by betrayal, a reminder that even the grandest facades can conceal the darkest of truths. And so, we leave you with a question to ponder. How far would you go when pushed to the edge by betrayal? Could you forgive, or would revenge harden your heart as it did for Orpheus Crowley? We invite you to share your thoughts and reflections on this haunting tale in the comments below. And if stories of intrigue, heartbreak, and mystery captivate your imagination, do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell to join us for more dark and mesmerizing bedtime stories that linger long after the last word is spoken. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, may your nights be filled with wonder and your dreams unclouded by secrets.